hard to find people that, have the same commitment to quality, have the same skill set. And then when we do scale something that is custom of this nature, it's, we don't want to lose the quality going out the door. So I think we're no different than any other company. We're hitting those walls of, we're at capacity for what we have now. And the only way for us to get bigger on the custom side is to start figuring out those same scaling challenges that any business has, right? With people and processes.
Hey everyone, this is Mark DeGrasse, the president of DigitalMarketer, and this is the podcast that keeps you up to date on everything you need to know when it comes to digital marketing, from the platforms you'd be focused on to the kind of tactics and tools that are working today. Today, our guest is McIntosh, the head of marketing and CMO of TK422 Customs and Firearms Depot. He's also the former owner of Swift Interactive, which is a very successful marketing agency before he pivoted into his current occupation, which I think is fantastic. And you're doing amazing things with content, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So welcome, Leon.
Thanks for having me. Excited to go through it and tell you a little bit about what's going on.
Oh, for sure. I think when you mentioned that you kind of had the, that style of content where you're actually taking people through, your products and kind of going into detail on the cool aspects of what you do, which, from the firearm side is making the safes and safe rooms. And, it's a really cool topic. And I think for a lot of companies like that, it's easy to just put up the product and say, here's the product, take it or leave it. But you guys are taking that next step, which is posting a ton of content around the product and kind of the neat aspects of it. So why don't we just start with what is the content and how did you come about to start making it?
Yeah. So on our custom side of the business with TK422 Customs, we do gun safes, vault rooms, those, big things like that. And, we have to really be careful because a lot of the times for firearms and all of the social platforms, the safes are really a safe thing for us, right? So there's no actual firearms in them, or we try not to show them too much with firearms in them, but we're doing we walk through them. Our owner, John, does it, and we're doing things that nobody else is doing, or we're doing it in a way nobody else is doing it. Some of our designs are so crazy and out there that nobody's building safes like that. And it's easy for us to create content, like video content around it. And we have to show what it actually is. So.
No, well, and that's great because I think a lot of times people kind of assume that their audience understands what the product is, what the value of that product is, what the benefits are, and even just how it works. Because if I was, say, a new, gun owner, I want a safe, and maybe have a ton of money. I'm like, oh, Safe Room. I watched that movie back in when was that? When was Safe Room? I think it was like 2000.
Who was in it? I remember that movie. Funny.
Yeah, remember they're trying to knock through the floor to get into it. But no, it's a very neat concept. So why don't you just walk me through just like an Instagram reel, like what's inside it?
Yeah. So with the creation, we have an in-house team. Our producer, I think is the title, right? His name's Nicky. He's worked for ESPN. He's really good at what he does. He's really good at coming up with what that artistic angle is. So what he'll do is run a whole bunch of B-roll on the outside of it and to show a lot of the function, because all of the safes that we do and all the safe rooms that we produce, they're all custom designed. We don't do any sort of cut and paste or off the shelf kind of design. Everything is from John's head with a client and something that he's designed. So it probably has a cool, like, flip down hidden compartment that's hiding like a whiskey bottle or something like that. So, it's pretty easy when you have cool features like that to create content around those pieces and create multiple pieces of content for it.
That's awesome. Well, I think the misconception these days is that you're like, oh no, I'll just use a CapCut and a template and then I'll have awesome content. And it's like, that's good basic content. But I think if you want to get into the real production, like if you look at, the big influencers out there and the big content creators, like they look professionally produced. And what I try to tell people is like, that's not by accident and that's not easy. It's a process. So do you guys actually kind of storyboard what you're going to do with, say, a new safe that you want to share? Or is it kind of like you get the content and then your producer mixes it all into something that looks good.
Well, in terms of content, look, a safe it could take up to 6 months, if not longer, to create. So I think we do have a process in place of capturing all the moments, if you will, right? Like there's definitely a whiteboard session of, hey, this client has come to us and wants to incorporate, I don't know, an old timey feel, or they want to have like a pull out bar inside of their gun safe or safe room. Like, what is the idea and how do we execute that? Or, they want the firearms to be on a rotator. How do we execute that? So that goes from whiteboard to production to actual, finished product. And our team's just really on top of capturing that from A to Z, because not only is it good for content to put out and for marketing purposes, but it's also good for us on how if somebody says, hey, I like that feature. How'd you do it? Well, we need to remember it because everything we build is custom one-off pieces. We're not really picking things off the shelf to stick inside a gun safe.
I love that. So it's almost like it's not just about the content creation. You're actually doing the product production and design, and then you're adding the content as kind of like a observational component of just your process for building, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we're doing things that nobody else is doing. And so there's no dedicated piece necessarily for doing what we're doing. We built to give you an example, we built a 9-foot, they call it the King Kong safe because it's so big. And we put a wet bar inside of it, right? So you're trying to put a wet bar inside of a concrete tomb, almost a gun safe, and you're trying to do it in such a confined space that so many of the things and so many of the storage compartments and drawers all have to be custom built, and we do it from the ground up.
Wow. No, that's awesome. Well, I love the incorporation and your ability to share it. So let me just ask that. So you have these clients that are buying a $1 million gun safe for their mansion. They're okay with you sharing the build process, or are there restrictions, or how's that work?
That's a good question, right? Because a lot of people don't want you to know what they have, particularly in this industry. We share the ones we're allowed to. Some people ask us not to. We've done some pretty cool stuff that we can't share. We have done some really cool stuff that we can share. We did a safe. I'll tell you one guy we did it for because he put it on the TV show, but we did it for one of the guys off Diesel Brothers, the Muscle. Nice. So we did a safe room in his house. And we've done a lot of other cool stuff. And I think I just told you a little bit ago, we did some stuff for the John Wick movies. If you Google John Wick gun safe, that was us. We did the actual box that Lawrence Fishburne and Ian McShane give Keanu the new pit viper out of in the movie. So, all kinds of stuff that we are able to create and that we are able to share. And, the content kind of makes itself during those build processes.
Oh, sure. Now, and did they find you through, say, your Instagram or where you guys are posting? Because I'd imagine, if I was a producer of a movie, that's probably where I would end up. I'm like, oh, they do the thing I need.
Yeah. You know what? Surprisingly, we don't, our website for it is very, very basic. We don't really do any promotion outside of just our Instagram channels. We do some other low key stuff. But really, it's all Instagram, and people find us through Instagram, and they'll reach out. A lot of the jobs, a lot of the things we have built had started with an Instagram DM.
That's so cool. It's kind of funny too, because at first I was like, wow, I'm surprised that many people want to share their secret safe or whatever. But I've been to multiple friends' houses that have a safe room, and that is like the first thing they show you. They're like, hey, come check this out. And you're like,
yeah, we've built some really cool ones, man. When the work that we do, people don't want to share it. Like when we build the full rooms, but when you go to their house, it's the first thing they want to take you to.
Yeah. They're like, you think the house is cool? Wait until you see this. And I was like, the bookshelf. I have plans for that, like with my house, where I'm like, oh, I can make a secret bookshelf, and you pull the right book, and then you get access. Like that's all fun. I think we all grew up kind of wanting that. Or at least watching movies about it. So
like that spy stuff, right? It's the secret. I got this cool thing. Nobody can see it, but watch what's behind this,
Yeah. I mean, I think I think we're all curious creatures. So that kind of stuff is like, oh, I wonder what's possible and what can you do? I think that's genius that you guys do that. So did you start that process of starting content like that for the company?
I did not start that process. I mean, it just happened naturally, right? Our entire team, I think what we're really fortunate for is our team, we've been together for quite a while now. And we have a very strong team that's awesome at their particular jobs, right? And our content side of things, or I would say our production side of things, they're on it. Nikki is always taking photos. And like I said, he comes from a production background from doing things for ESPN. He does things for the local University of Florida. So he's always behind a camera, whether it's video or photography. And he knows what it means to capture those moments. And those are discussions that we've had, right? Is we need to capture this stuff because we absolutely understand that sharing our process, it gives some humanity to us. We don't just want to be a brand of like, here's just stuff. We want to kind of put some personality to it. So it's been an ingrained process of, hey, we take pictures, we write stuff about it, we publish it. Here's our schedule, right? And here's the types of content we are trying to create. So it's pretty ingrained.
That's fantastic. You want to prioritize your work that will really move the needle for your business's growth, but you're not sure how to do that while keeping up with all the repetitive day-to-day tasks. Keep Sales and Marketing Automation software is designed to help small business teams take their time back from busy work. It helps you organize your customer and lead information in one place, automate follow-ups and appointments, get paid faster, and stay on top of opportunities in your sales pipeline, all while freeing your team up to focus on the work that will have the biggest impact. Here at Digital Marketer, we've trusted Keep to help us get real results from our campaigns for 10 years. Visit keep.com/DM to learn more and get Keep's Lifestyle Automation Guide, which walks you through their proven framework for growth and helps you identify gaps in your customer lifecycle. That's keep.com/DM. Well, I always talk about that cohesiveness of marketing, and people think, well, a lot of people don't even think about it. They think, oh, I need to do some Instagram posts, I need to do a newsletter, I need to do, these different components, but they really don't think of, incorporating marketing as actually part of the operation. Not like operations and marketing, but those are the same thing. You put them together and now you have amazing content. You have, the genuine approach. And like you said, the human side of the product, because you could do, you think of John Wick and you're like, oh, it's just cold and there's pictures of the safe, and you could do probably a really neat marketing, like paid marketing and graphics and commercials and everything like that. And you'll actually see that type of content a lot with aviation companies. Like I follow a lot of aviation, and I'm like, man, these guys could be doing awesome content constantly. And instead they do some single video when they finally release one prototype, and it's a big dramatic documentary style thing. I'm like, this is boring. You guys are trying to teach people how to fly. Like, you can make that neat,
right? Yeah.
And you guys actually did that. That's huge.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Look, these things go from an idea, like a discussion with a client, to an actual architectural drawing, the whole whiteboard session in between. It goes to, and right next to our office is where we build them. So it's all built right in-house. So it's just easy to get to capture that content and capture those moments. Nikki's also our production team is part of our customs team in terms of actually building it, because we are all very multifaceted in our company. So I am not just dedicated to marketing. I'll go help do merchandising. I'll help do shipping sometimes. Like, we're all into the different parts. So to capture it and to give that human side, I think is pretty important for people to see. Like, they want to, I think people, what's the saying, right? People buy from people. So they want to see that someone's building it and it's not just like an assembly line, if you will.
Well, and that's what, that's what a lot of people think marketing is just some kind of weird formula that you put together, and then you spend some money and you get some results, and then you A/B test it and blah, 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 blah. But I think your process makes so much more sense, especially even that your actual content producers are the ones producing the product. And so they're going to know exactly what's unique about it, and they'll be able to talk about it. And when they do talk about it, then it establishes their authority. And then the whole thing is like a, just a cycle of reinforcement for these guys know what they're doing. They do it all the time. They casually put out content that makes it onto John Wick. Like, that's incredible. So do you actually do any paid advertising as well, or boosting for the post?
No, not right now. It's definitely an avenue we are exploring, but we obviously have to proceed with caution because it seems like every other day the platforms do something that makes it more prohibitive for us, right? And even then, gun safes, they say they are on, like just using Facebook as an example, they say they are on the allowed list, but we'll go through probably 10 rounds of rejection, change this, and before we finally get something posted. So there's a massive marketing effort coming for it. It's just we haven't hit the ground running yet because we're actually at capacity. We can't produce more than what we're doing right now.
Yeah, well, that's a good problem to have. We're like, we're just too successful. Take reservations. No, that's really the dream of most businesses, and even for a company like that, I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could scale through the moon if you just said like, hey, here's our standardized, 9-foot, what'd you call it, the
King Kong safe.
King Kong safe. Yeah, here's our standard 9-foot King Kong safe. You're going to need this much space. It's all components, and it has these features, or maybe click the features you want, and now you could scale. But I think you guys are doing it right in terms of like, no, let's just do it well. We're the best, and that's really that's how you get those big contracts like John Wick, where you're like, oh yeah, they know we're the guys. Or a show, because this sounds like a show that you're describing.
It's also that we could scale, but I think that's probably one of our limiting factors right now is we are not scaling. And doing custom work like we're doing, it's hard to find people that have the same commitment to quality, have the same skill set. And then when we do scale something that is custom of this nature, it's, we don't want to lose the quality going out the door. So I think we're no different than any other company. We're hitting those walls of, we're at capacity for what we have now. And the only way for us to get bigger on the custom side is to start figuring out those same scaling challenges that any business has, right? With people and processes and things like that.
Yeah, but I think you guys are going through the right stages, because it is easy. It's easy to get obsessed with scale early instead of doing the hard work of really figuring out what people want, what kind of marketing resonates, how to share content, how to get referrals, all that kind of groundwork that you set up could lead to scalability however you want, in the future. But I think moving forward, and I talk about this all the time when I talk about AI, I say that, content is going to be where marketers live, because if you want, if you still want to be a resource and don't want, ChatGPT or any of these other tools just generating content based on user preferences, you're going to have something unique about how you do things, and then also how you present that information. And I think yours is a perfect model for actually systematizing, like, hey, no, we share the information, we get that authority, we, make it interesting, we make it entertaining, and then there you go. And it's the owner of the company, which I think is a, important aspect. So would you say that the owner is essentially the spokesperson?
Yeah, I mean, all the ideas really come from his head, right? It's his baby. He comes up with all the crazy off the wall stuff that, we do for whether it's a client or another industry partner. And he's really good at it. That's what gets him going. So from a production side and a content side, it's easy there because those creative juices never stop with him. I would say like on our Firearms Depot side, because our e-commerce side is firearmsdepot.com, that's where we probably fall into a more traditional content creation path of what kind of content do we want to create? How are we going to distribute it? How can we distribute it? Who's, thinking more of who the reader actually is and how do we get them to perform the actions that we want them to make,
No, that makes sense. Well, and since you are kind of restricted because the product itself, you guys are ideal for having a database of, firearms content on the website, because you get to control what's there. And that's, I always try to sell people, and I'm like, guess what? You don't have to comply with anybody because you own it and you decide. So I think that's awesome as well. Now, I know you did have an agency before. Do you have any tips that say a standard company or agency could apply to their content creation based on the success you've seen with the safes?
From an agency standpoint, that's a good question. I haven't really thought of it, like how I would gear this up for something like an agency. But, I can't say that there's one particular thing other than just creating the schedule, right? Like is understanding what your process of, what's important about what you are creating. Like for us, it's to show that what we're doing is different, and to show that the end product is awesome. So like understanding that why and ensuring that the why is driving what those individual pieces of content are from an agency standpoint, I think is probably the biggest takeaway out of that.
I love that. Well, and getting into the process, I wrote an article, I want to say 2 years ago and it was about how SpaceX keeps on blowing up stuff and how it's awesome that they share that information.
Valued 150 billion.
Well, what's funny is standard companies don't do that. Boeing isn't coming out and being like, oh yeah, we're trying to build this plane and we keep crashing it. Like it just keeps blowing up. And everybody's like, oh, that makes the stock price go up, and I think, companies like yours and companies like SpaceX are the ones who are showing people the process. Like, hey, here's how we do it. Here's the people that are doing it. Here's why we're doing it. Here's the neat outcome we had from it. Like that's really, advanced content. And it's totally different because I think for the longest time, we've really been scared of sharing that stuff. Because one, you're worried about the competitors stealing your secrets, or you're worried about how people are going to judge your process if your process isn't 100% successful, which no process is 100%.
100%. I mean, look, I think we talk about, and you probably talk about like the customer value journey. And I think the in that journey is people knowing that there's other people behind it. And I don't think customers or interested parties will say, clients, I don't think they're too concerned with if you mess up. Mm-hmm. In some cases, right? I think they want to see that humanity behind it. And they want to know that, hey, the person behind this is actually busting their butt to make sure we get the right thing, we get the right solution. And being able to show that through the content, I think has helped. And even if that's not like your direct message, it comes through by showing the people like we do for the custom side of the business, showing Nikki, Dad, or one of our folks actually creating this stuff. You can see that it was built with somebody's hands. And I think people want to see that.
Yeah. Well, they want to see that the money that they're giving to a company isn't just going to some big boss who's just cashing checks and, screwing over employees. It's like, no, guess what? Like, we're all in this. Like, you buying this safe paid for my kids' braces, or whatever it is. But that's what's actually happening. Like, I think there's too much of a separation between audiences and what they think small businesses are, where it sounds like that's a small business. You guys are a family. You guys take care of each other. You have problems. You make mistakes. You fail. These are all things that everybody's familiar with. But when we've kind of, I don't know if institutionalized marketing, but we're like, no, we're going to wash this all away. Like, I know your business is the same way about 95% of the time, but we're going to make that 5% when everything goes perfect. That's all we're going to show.
Yeah, man. I mean, and I think we all fall into that, right? Like we all try to put on this perfect face and put out this perfect thing, but it's becoming harder to do. And the quality, I think we talked about it before, the quality of what you got to produce to do that is so high now that I think there's an appreciation in the marketplace for something that isn't quite as polished, or there's a little more weight put to it, because you ultimately you want to sell, but you don't want them to feel like they're being sold to on every piece of content that you put out,
Yeah. You want it to be natural, that natural kind of like, you know what? I trust these guys. I see they don't do it right every time, but that's unrealistic anyways. If you told me that 100% of everything we do is perfect, I'd be like, okay, you're not somebody I want to talk to because you're lying.
Right. I mean, look, if the internet's taught me one thing, it's that people from all over the place, everybody has different expectations of delivery, right? And if you constantly hold yourself to everybody's expectations, you're going to drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, well, and you end up serving no one. At the end of the day, like showing these mistakes and showing this process is actually catering to your customer avatar, where your customer avatar is like, you know what? that company is out there. They're trying stuff that's never been tried before. Of course, they're going to screw up sometimes, or of course, it's not going to go perfect every time. But the fact that they're out there trying makes me believe that they could do my crazy idea. And so, this process of actually sharing all the information is actually qualifying the customer as much as it is displaying what you do.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I agree.
So, well, that's fantastic. I think you guys are doing awesome. I'm going to go subscribe to everything right after this, because I'm like, oh, that sounds so cool. I like watching the hot rod shows and the motorcycle builds. Actually, Jesse James lives down the street. That's my friend that has the safe they like to show off. Also had a custom made 9mm gun made by Jesse James, and I was like, oh,
that's awesome.
That's cool. I don't have one. And then he lost it at one point. He's like, I don't know where I put it. I'm like, did you find it, please? I'm not going to bring my kids over.
Not good delusion. That's why we build safe. You got to be safe.
Yeah, he has a safe. Anyways, well, that's fantastic. I think you guys are doing awesome. I think what you're doing is actually the future of marketing. So you're already ahead of the curve. Where can people, find out about you and learn more about the brand?
Yeah. So to find me, you can check me out on Instagram it's at Leon Mac, LeonMac. Our brands are for our custom safe business. It's at TK422 Customs. And you can also follow at Firearms Depot. That's our e-commerce site where we sell anything under the sun that's firearms related. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for showing the real process and kind of what goes into it, because, a lot of times it's so easy just to disconnect marketing from the actual business, and it's just so wrong. It needs to be part of the whole thing. And I think you guys are doing a great job. For sure. Thanks for having me. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to hit that follow button so you get notified when all of our new episodes release. Please share this with that friend who is clueless about digital marketing. And don't forget to visit digitalmarketer.com, where you can access all of our courses, certifications, and training programs. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.